Hey guys, just thought I'd come out here, talk about the reason I don't use wire anymore. Like, wire for anything. I don't wire stuff off. I use cable, I use chain, I stake stuff. Um, I don't use wire. Every time I hear somebody saying use wire, right? I always be like, oh my god, don't use wire. You know why? Because everyone says use wire, they don't say what gauge wire to use. Then you get the people out to use this thin pencil tip diameter wire out there saying they're gonna go catch these beaver with them, and then they use the wrong stuff, they lose an animal, and it's just bad luck for trapping. I never suggest use wire. I know it's fast, I know it's easy, but let me tell you, it's so easy to be misconstrued and not to give enough information where the person turns around and does the wrong thing. For example, this is where story time comes in. I have a story with my mentor. We were, doing beaver trapping. We came to a bridge abundant. We had some wire in there. This thin wire, thin diameter wire. Something that, shouldn't break. Maybe the size of, little bit bigger than the tip of a pin size wire. Maybe double that thickness. Something that I was like, this is not going to break. They're not going to pull that away. They'll be here fine. Tied to 1.5. Put it in a little pinch point where a tree's going around. This is under a bridge abutment, but put it there. Tied to this limb that, pretty thick limb, about that thick. Pretty stiff, and then there's a bunch of other limbs going off about that thick. We wrapped it around there, tied it. Not nice and tight. Not tied it, but got it on there. And we did that. Set it. Come back the next day. We checked the beaver traps down there. Nothing in the beaver traps. Walk over there. The trap's gone. Wire's gone. It was a clean break. The way it looked at the end of the wire and it broke. Gone. And this is out in the country. This is on there's nobody going under here. It wasn't a human, because where this was is 99% of the people drive right past it and not even realizing that you can actually get under this bridge, right? It's very hard to get under, and a lot of people don't even get under there. Not even the homeless. There's a lot of homeless out here. They don't go under there. So, we set it. They're going to catch something small, not that big, maybe a mink or something. Mink would have been there, we would have been fine. What we think happened was a raccoon got in it, got caught in it, got away, no idea where it went. We looked, the creek wasn't that high. We looked all over, looked up and down the bank, looked all over the place, couldn't find it. Haunts me to this day that I know it's on an animal's foot, and the animal walked away with it. And particularly a raccoon. I know he walked away with it. I know he walked away with it. I don't know if he walked away with it, broke off, fell into the creek and drowned. Don't know if he walked away with it just down the bank and ripped it off. But he walked away with it, and that's why I don't use wire. And thick wire is fine, but when people say wire is great, I use wire. Well, I use wire does not say, hey, avoid this type of wire for this scenario because you're gonna end up losing animals. People just go out and buy wire thinking it's okay, and I don't like that. I don't like people that just say, oh yeah, I use wire, or I use this, or I use that, without giving details. It leads to accidents, it leads to people losing animals and mistakes happening, and then shit like, pardon the phrase, but stuff that happened like with me that day. Still haunts me. This was like in 2013. This is when I was right out of high school, over 10 years ago. Still haunts me to this day. I still think about it. Only thing I can think of is he got caught, ended up going in the creek. And we looked in the creek, we came back when it was low, couldn't find anything. That animal disappeared. And no, like I said, it wasn't a human that did it. It wasn't somebody that popping it off. It was gone. You gotta remember, some of these creeks, when we're going under these bridges, that if you don't go under, you're gonna fall. And it's semi-dangerous to go under some of these because of how steep they are. And some of them are sand, and you're sliding all over the place and stuff. But this one wasn't even on the easy side. This was on the steep side. The really dangerous side we put it on. I don't even want to tell you how many times I've hit my head going under those bridges. It's rough bridge trapping. But yeah, if you're gonna suggest somebody use wire, make sure you suggest a diameter of wire, or better yet, don't suggest wire, because every time I hear someone mention wire, I freak out like, oh my god, wire, oh my god. This person's gonna make a simple mistake. They're gonna think, oh, let me just go grab some wire from the hardware store and put it out and think it's just gonna be fine. Definitely avoid wire. Cable's your better option, and chain, right? Yeah, wire's cheap, it's easy. But if you're gonna use wire, leave it to the more experienced trappers that know how to use wire and what diameter to use, right? Because a simple suggestion using wire because it's cheap, people use the wrong diameter. I've gone over this a couple times. It's rambling now, but just don't use wire. That's my story. I lost the animal, lost the trout, never found the animal, and we used wire. The last time I'll ever use wire, and I told myself that day, if I ever set another trap up like this, I'm using cable or chain, and I'm not going to spare any expense. I'm not going to go cheap with it. I'm not going to do that. And as much as I'm a trapper, I don't want to sit there and hurt the animals and have an animal running around with a trap on his foot, because that's just bad look and that's just bad for the animal. If I'm going to catch the animal, I want him dead. I want to kill him and be done with it. I don't want to have him running around with it on his foot, and especially if he's going to get away, because we have a tag on the thing and it just looks bad. Up the roadways, there's houses. Up in the hills, there's a little bit of houses, but God forbid someone sees it on their foot, calls game board, and it's on their foot, and then we get the call saying, well, you lost the trap, and we get talked to because we made a stupid mistake of using wire. But life lesson, don't use wire. Use cable or chain. Or if you have to zip tie off something, or tied off something, don't even use zip ties. Make a quick link with cable. Ditch the wire. I hate wire. I can't not stress this enough. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you would have to been there to understand the feeling of losing an animal, being young, and be like, what happened, not understanding. And then later in life, later down the road, figuring out what happened and feeling like shit for it and having to live with that. So, don't use wire. And don't suggest it to people without saying use 9 gauge, 11 gauge, or whatever. Make sure you suggest what you're using and be right about it, because you don't want to use the wrong stuff.